Welcome back to The Beat. Sponsorships have long been a part of sports, but will the NBA someday make a move like the PGA Tour or NASCAR and actually have advertising on player jerseys? Think about that. The Celtics green with State Farm splashed across the chest, or maybe a Laker jersey hawking Gatorade. Here to discuss from New York is Jeff Bander, a marketing specialist of iTrack Shop Incorporated, and also from New York via Cisco Telepresence is Mark Tatum, NBA Executive Vice President, Global Marketing Partnerships. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Mark, I'll start with you. Where does the league stand on this right now, and do you believe that it might be addressed next month at the Board of Governors?
Well, Vince, first of all, the Board of Governors agenda hasn't been set yet. But I can tell you that with the subject of putting sponsor logos on NBA uniforms is a subject of some conversation with our teams. We owe it to the league, to our teams, to evaluate the opportunity, to really take a look at the impact on the marketplace, to understand the implications to the key stakeholders, and to make sure that any revenue that's derived as a result of putting sponsor logos on uniforms is truly incremental. So there's a lot that we're evaluating, a lot that we're discussing internally before we can make a formal recommendation and decision on whether this is the right thing to do or not.
You know, I wonder, we see that in baseball, the A's and Mariners, I believe, are going to have advertising on their helmets to start the season in baseball. But that's obviously not something that's applicable to NBA uniforms. So I'm wondering, just really from a logistical standpoint, are we talking about the shoulder patch type of uniform? I know in the WNBA they also had uniforms across the torso. They had ads across the torso. Where would you put it? I'm just curious.
The placement of those logos is one of those things that we're considering right now. David, as you mentioned, we've been doing this for several years in the WNBA as well as the NBA Development League. And in the case of the WNBA, some teams have sold it right across the front of the chest. And then in addition, we, this past year, for the first time, also sold a national marketing partner in Boost Mobile a secondary placement on the front of the jersey. So there are lots of different models that are out there, everything from a patch to a belly patch to the full frontal model, and those are the kinds of things that we're evaluating right now.
Jeff Bander, let's bring you into this conversation. And it seemed that this was unthinkable a while back. If purists love their team jerseys, and this could never happen, but it's infiltrating in. And as I said, it's happened in the PGA Tour and in NASCAR, international soccer. So do you feel like this is the next logical step?
Definitely, and I think it's going to bring a lot of great debate, a lot of talk, and most importantly, the whole point of it is to bring a lot of money. And I think it's going to be, at first, maybe some kickback from fans complaining. I think it's going to be fun, but I think it's going to generate tons of millions of dollars to whoever gets to divide it up. I think it's going to be big.
Jeff, what do companies, where is the value in it for the companies? Obviously, you want to be affiliated with successful teams and a successful brand, but if you're going to do it for one team, you may do it for all of them, and you know there are going to be teams that don't have winning records putting these patches on. So where is the overall added value for an advertiser?
Well, it's branding dollars. That's really where the big value is. And you're right. It's like you meant. There's a little talk before about one particular company on one particular jersey, and there's going to have to be creativity and a lot of thought ahead of time because there are certain colors. For example, there are certain companies that have red in their logo that may not fit well with the Celtic green. And so that's going to have to come into play. But there's enough companies out there that want to be branded with the NBA. And the value, besides the games, besides the replays, besides the Internet, there's tremendous residual value that I think is going to, done properly, it's going to be a big win for everybody.
But Mark, if we do this, if you go ahead with this, are some of the possible solicitors going to say, well, I want to advertise on a Knicks jersey, or I want to advertise on a Laker jersey, rather than going to some smaller market teams where the exposure isn't as great? Or will it be revenue sharing? Would you share the revenue?
Well, first of all, those are all the things that I talked about in terms of things that we need to consider. The thing you have to remember about the NBA as a league and the value proposition is that our games are broadcast in over 200 countries and territories around the world. So the value is not just the branding value that's derived from those games being seen here in the U.S., but it's a global sport. You have to remember that we are really the exception rather than the rule when it comes to not having sponsored logos on jerseys. We talked about all the different properties. It's universally accepted that soccer jerseys are outside the U.S. Have sponsor branding on it. And again, we talked about the WNBA, we talked about the NBA Development League, NASCAR, Major League Soccer.
Basketball.
So, right. So we really are the exception there to that rule.
I wonder, Mark, I'm sure you've ballparked it. I know you don't probably have specific dollar amounts here, but would the potential value be something along the lines equivalent to maybe what the league gets in from courtside signage, for example?
Well, I'm not going to put a specific number on it, but there perhaps will be a point where the value proposition will make it such that we have to make that decision where there's so much money involved that from a value proposition that we have to say yes to this.
Jeff, I want to go back to a point you made about sort of fans getting used to this and maybe seeing their favorite teams have jerseys dotted with advertising patches. Will they get over it? I mean, what about the jerseys that are in stores that they say, hey, you know what, this is my team's look, and I don't want to change.
Well, they say no, all PR is good. I think there's going to be a hot buzz, debate, do it, not do it, and when it comes out, because I think it will, people will say they love it, people say they hate it. So there's going to be a lot of conversation, which is going to be good. And as was just mentioned, the NBA is global. Everywhere in the world they watch it. It's on TV. It's watched everywhere in the world. And besides the replays on the internet, it's the companies that are smart are going to advertise, and they're going to advertise big. And the fans, as we know, they love this game. They're going to keep loving the game. They'll just talk about it for something else for a while.
If it becomes a league-sponsored thing, though, I just wonder, because I remember going back to the kind of problems that were evident in '92 when one company was sponsoring the Olympic team and Michael Jordan belonged to a different company, and he wound up covering the patch up, and it became a whole big thing. And I just wonder if that's something that potentially could be a problem if the league accepts this as an advertising, but maybe an individual player advertises with a rival company.
We deal with that now. I mean, we deal with that with different naming rights deals. We deal with that where a team has a specific local partner and the league has a conflicting national partner. So, again, those are all the types of things that we're taking into consideration as we make this decision. How you go to market, who sells it, what do you do about conflicting partners? So that's all part of the evaluation and assessment process that we're going through right now.
Yeah, Jeff, it seems like you wanted to talk about that. How do you smooth that over and make it work for everyone?
Well, you're exactly right. We've got to understand, first of all, it looks like the shoes you can't touch because all the players have their own contracts with shoes. But as far as the uniforms, there's going to have to be some thought on which companies are involved because you're right. If like what happened in the Olympics with Jordan, there's enough companies out there that are generic and have lots of advertising dollars that want to market that I don't think you'll have that problem. Again, I think it's going to be a big revenue producer for the NBA.
Mark, final question. Do you see this happening? Is this going to happen in the foreseeable future? I mean, are we on our way toward this?
I don't know the answer to that. That will be up to the owners to decide upon. What we have to do is make sure that the value proposition is there and that we have taken into consideration all of the different variables, all the different implications of our key stakeholders. But once we finish that assessment, that evaluation, and present it, then ultimately it will be up to the owners to decide if that's something we want to pursue or not.
All right, gentlemen. Good conversation. Thank you very much for being here. Jeff Bander and Mark Tatum, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
And coming up on the beat, we put our guys on the clock. And the clock is what Kobe watched tick away Sunday while he grabbed some bench. What, if anything, does this mean? We'll be right back.